take a minute here, just pause kind of in the song while the band is still playing, for you guys to get up off your feet, go around, say hi to somebody that you maybe don't know. Open up your heart to the people around you a little bit today.
Hello. Hi, welcome to Epic Church. My name is Moses. That's right, that is what my parents named me, Moses. And I want to welcome you to Epic Church today. So happy you're here in the pouring rain. Unbelievable. Yesterday, one of our power transformers got hit by lightning. And we were without lights for like 10 minutes. But without internet for like an hour. It was unbearable. I had to use my data on my phone. It was awful. Anyway, I want to welcome you to Epic Church. If this is your first time, there's a couple things. Our bathrooms are just right through those doors. You just go on in. Guys and girls bathroom. And we don't take up an offering here. We just have an offering table in the back. At any time, you can get up and give us your possessions. Today, if you give money there and you don't mark it for Epic Church or for something else, it goes to Alberta Advance, which means something important. Yes, good. That's good enough. So that's where our offering goes. And what's going to happen is we're going to have some more music, some songs. You're welcome to sing along, express yourself however you want. Then there'll be a little video. There will be a message. And then we'll have some more singing. And at the end, after that, there's a little bit more singing as well if you want to hang around. Or you can go next door and we're going to have food. What? Food! Yeah, and the theme today is salads and cheesecake. I saw a cheesecake there, so don't touch it, it's mine. But there's cheesecake. And after you're done that, this afternoon, if you want to help out our community, if you want to help this community in downtown, we volunteer at a soup kitchen, and it's just 3 blocks that way. At 3:30, you can come out and hang out at the soup kitchen. And there's many things to do there. One of the fun jobs is actually serving people who come through. Because, believe it or not, they're like really grateful, and they're really cool people. You just serve them, and they like always say, thank you. And you get to learn their names, and you get to ask a little bit about their lives. So that's one job. You can do the serving line. Or you could be upstairs, and you don't have contact with any humans. You just like cut stuff, stir stuff, clean stuff. If that's your thing, you hate humans, that's perfect for you. So at Soup Kitchen at 3:30, you can do that. And next week, wow, we're already looking into the future. Next week, we'll be volunteering at the Ronald McDonald House. And if you don't know what that is, that's a spot just off the hospital where families with kids, if the kids are in the hospital, they can stay there at the Ronald McDonald House. It is a cool place. There's like a secret room that they can only show you if you volunteer at the Ronald McDonald House. It's full of magic. I've said too much, but that's the Ronald McDonald House. That'll be next week. If you want to know more about that or sign up for that, you talk to Caitlin Ruiz. She's not here. No, I think she's on the other side, and we can hook you up with that. So other than that, I just want to thank you for coming to Epic Church. I hope that you have a great time, that you enjoy the food, that you enjoy the music, and that you could reconnect with God in a meaningful way. So welcome to Epic Church.
I just want to invite you all to stand as we just continue our worship this morning. And I know that sometimes it's a little bit of out of our comfort zone, and it is for me too, but I want to just challenge you in your worship this morning to do something a little bit out of the norm. Express yourself some way this morning in your worship other than just singing. Maybe it's tapping your toe. Maybe it's an arm in the air. I don't know, but I want to stretch us a little bit this morning as we continue our worship. We just are so thankful for the sacrifice that you gave us. And sometimes it's beyond us to actually reach out to you and thank you for that. Sometimes it's just the thing that we've always said and the thing that we know we're supposed to say, but we hold something back. Because to really worship you, to really come into worship, to really do something to serve you with our lives is difficult. So God, as we finish up our worship this morning, I just pray that we would experience your Holy Spirit in our heart, that you would empower us to do more than just sing a song, to do more than just stand or sit in church, but to actually come before your throne and worship you with our heart, our mind, our body, and our soul. God, we just thank you so much for that privilege of worship. can be seated.
Yes. I want to welcome you again to Epic Church. You are in luck because this is a week where we begin our new series. So every once in a while, we have these messages that we put together on purpose. That's right, on purpose. And this one we're looking at is called Foundations. And basically what we're saying is that at the core of the faith experience, it matters what you believe. And we are just going to break down a couple of foundational beliefs, okay? And for some of you in the group, this is like, yes, oh, this is so great. Because whenever you look at stuff like this, you got to get kind of detail-oriented, kind of a little nitty-gritty. And some of you will be like, no! It'll feel a tiny bit like school, but we'll try and like help each other out. So this is what we're doing, foundation, because the reason we're doing this is what you believe is really important. Because what you believe, what your belief system is, tells me a lot about you. It tells me, for example, how you see yourself. What you believe tells me how you see yourself. If you see yourself as something valuable, if you see yourself as someone with a future, it all has to do with what you believe. What you believe tells me when you will be courageous. Tells me when you're willing to get uncomfortable to do the right thing. Let's go a little bit deeper. What you believe actually tells me what you think is right and what is wrong. And in our context, what you believe tells me how you see God. And depending on how you see God, changes your entire faith experience. The interesting side of belief is very few people actually get to decide what they believe. Did you know that? Very few people actually get to decide what they believe because to know what you believe takes thinking, and thinking hurts, and it takes intentionality. You actually have to go through and know why you believe what you believe. Because most of us will pick up beliefs, but you'll pick them up unconsciously. You'll pick them up from your friends, you'll pick them up from society, and before you know it, you make decisions made on beliefs that you never got to pick. So this is why this is important. And before we get going on this conversation, this will be, by the way, our first conversation. Before we get going, I'm just going to lay down a couple of ground rules. First one is, if you don't believe like I believe, if you don't exactly see eye to eye, that's totally fine. We're so happy you're here because we think that faith is always a conversation, okay? So if you don't believe, please worship with us. We love it. This is just a conversation we're having. So that's the ground rule number one. Second thing I want to say is we're going to do this in a really respectful way because sometimes we'll talk about other belief systems, but we do it in the most respectful way, knowing that there are really intelligent, smart people that believe different things, and that's okay. Okay, so that's the second ground rule. And now for the really nitty-gritty ground rule is we make one assumption when we talk about foundations. And the assumption is that when you follow Jesus, the guide is the Bible. Okay? If you can agree with me on that, then we can have this other conversation. Because if we say that when you follow Jesus, the foundation is the Bible, then it should just be the Bible. And that the Bible alone should be able to explain itself. And anything that you believe, especially in the faith context, needs to come from the Scriptures. If it comes from something else, it's not the Bible. That's kind of obvious. I shouldn't have said that. But that's the first, main foundation. If we can all accept that, we can have a conversation. Because then we can say, what does the Bible say about this? Then we're not talking about what does this group believe, what does this denomination believe. We really want to say, what does the Bible say about this? Okay, so let's go into it. Our conversation today is new way to be human. New way to be human. So there are, essentially, two ways to look at humans when it comes to faith experience, okay? There are two kind of leading biblical views, if you want to put it that way, okay? First one, and I'm going to say some words, and if you don't get these words on the first time, don't worry, they'll be said a lot of times. The first way of looking at humans is called holism. What's it called? Holism. It doesn't have to do with donut holes. It's holism. This is holism. It says that a human being is a unity, a complex unity of many facets, interrelated, and not exist in isolation. What a terrible definition. Holism is there are pieces to a human, and you are only human when those pieces are together. When those pieces come apart, you're not human. Whole. You're only whole, right? Okay. The second kind of leading view that we have is something called dualism. And dualism, and I'll give you the complicated definition first, is the human is a composite being, a union of things that are essentially different, such as body and soul. According to dualism, one of those parts is the real bearer of personal identity, and it does not need the other to exist. So dualism says that humans are actually two parts, but they don't need each other. There is one part called the soul where your identity is, where your personality really is, and this can live on without the body. That's dualism, okay, in a nutshell. So let's get right down to the foundation, right down to the beginning. This is going to be in Genesis chapter 2 and 7. I want to give you the recipe for making a human. When you go home, you can try this. If it works, don't tell me. That'd be too freaky. Okay, so this is what we have foundation here in Genesis. Then the Lord God formed humanity of dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. So this is what we have here. The recipe for making a human: dirt. Wait, Bible says dust. That sounds so much more elegant, right, than dirt. So it's dust, and then you have breath of God, or breath of life, and together they make a living being. In some of your translations, that's going to say a living soul, and that word is going to come up many times in the Bible. So what we have here, dirt plus breath equals life, okay? And once again, we look back to holism. Holism says that two pieces come together, and then they make a human. If those pieces come apart, dirt and breath, there is no human. Okay, just a couple things I'm going to say about this text real quick. The first one is this. According to this text, according to holism, to this perspective, humans have bodies. Actually, that's incorrect. According to this, humans are bodies. Okay, you guys are not excited about that at all. That's okay. All right, so this is what happens. Things that have to do with the body are good. Did you hear that? That when God creates, he creates the body to be able to experience joy, and those things are good. And I need to tell you this because there is a strain of belief out there that says that anything that has to do with the body is bad. Desires of the body are bad. There are other desires, maybe of the mind or of the soul, that are good, but stuff with the body is bad. And right from the beginning of his creation, God says it is good. In fact, the day after Adam and Eve drop out of the garden, the first thing that God does is he feeds them. God is interested in the body. Later on, it says in Luke, when Jesus is talking to his disciples, he talks about how in the future to come, that he will eat and drink with them. It's always a body, and feeding the body, giving joy to the body, is a God thing from the beginning. Humans are bodies. Even in heaven, if you will, in Revelation, it says that they will not hunger or thirst, and that they will eat at the tree of life. Bodies, only bodies eat. In fact, Jesus makes an example when he comes back to life, and he's trying to tell them that he's alive, that he is alive, that he is not a spirit. He says, give me food, only bodies eat. And that's not the only thing. The other thing is, from the beginning, the body that God gave you is capable of joy. And from the beginning, you have been given the gift of sexuality. And this wasn't an idea that was had at a corporation. It's right in the beginning from God. Your body is from God. Your body is you. And it goes a step further, because in holism, your body is all connected. What you do to your body affects your mind, because there's no difference. It's all connected. It's not, I can think these things, I can do this thing, and it doesn't matter what I do with my body. It actually, because of what you believe, it matters everything. Whatever you do to your mind, you're finding now, will actually affect your body. If you're in a good mood, if you experience positive things, your body reacts positively. Okay, so that's the first thing we have. You are a body. Okay, how else does the Bible describe these items that make you human? Now, this is where we get into the nitty-gritty. I'm expecting some eye glaze over here, all right? That's totally fine. Okay, first thing we have is breath. Breath of God. Oh, man, this is exciting. Okay, in Hebrew, how you say the word breath is ruach. So, ruach, and then a little phlegm. Let's say it together. Ruach. No, guys, I never even got spit on. Ruach. Okay, in the New Testament, in Greek, and the word is pneuma. You've heard of pneumatics? And it's things with air, pneuma. Okay, and this is what breath is in the scriptures. The breath of God is the animating power that makes an organism come to life. Did that make sense? The breath of God is the animating power that makes an organism come to life. The breath in itself, it has no mind, it has no purpose, it's just the animating power. This is how we know this. Ecclesiastes 3:19 says, man's fate is like that of the animal. The same fate awaits them both. As one dies, so does the other. All have the same breath. This animating power goes to humans, goes to animals. That's breath. It's just the animating power. Ecclesiastes 12:7 says, then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit, that's ruach, breath, depending on what translation you have, shall return unto God who gave it. So this is what we have. We have dirt, we have breath. Breath is the animating. When they come together, it makes a human according to this. When they're separate, Ecclesiastes just said, you turn to dust, and the breath goes back to God. The breath isn't a person. The person is when they come together. I feel like I'm going to say that a lot. Okay, so let's go to the next word. When it comes together, and it says living being, most translations will say soul. Like, soul brother. Soul food. No? Okay, fine, whatever. Okay, soul in the Bible is not part of a human being. It is the human being. The soul is the last thing there. When they come together, it's called soul. Together they form the human body. Okay, here's your next lesson. In Greek, soul, suke. Say it, suke. I don't know if I said that right. That doesn't sound right. But it's suke, all right? That's what we call it in Greek. In Hebrew, in the Old Testament, it's so much better, nephesh. Sounds like an evil dictator, right? Nephesh. Okay, this is where we get into the nitty-gritty. And I need to explain this because it's important that you know how the Bible's translated. So when the Bible's translated, they have these manuscripts, Greek and Hebrew. And what happens is many scholars come together. And this is really, really important. Many scholars from different belief backgrounds come together. You hear that? That's really important. That means that when they're translating the Bible, you got a guy who's a Baptist, you got a guy who's a Lutheran, you got a guy who's a Catholic, you have a couple of atheists, believe it or not, and they all translate the Bible. And they look at the words and suke, and then they start coming up with what the English word would be for it. And I would be really nervous if I ever had a translation of the Bible where all the translators were of the same belief. Why is that? Because there's a danger whenever we read the Bible that we bring our assumptions to the Bible. That we have made up our minds before we've read the Bible. And we say, this is what the Bible's going to say. And then we read that into it. Okay? So here's what suke has been translated. And I've looked at a ton of versions of this. 40 times in the New Testament it's translated as life or alive. 58 times it's translated as soul. It's in Matthew, 1 Peter, Acts. Sometimes it's translated as people. Sometimes it's translated as a personal pronoun, he, she, okay? Twice it refers to emotions. When Jesus says, my soul is burdened unto death, it's an emotion. Twice it's translated as the mind. In Ephesians, suke is translated as the heart. In the whole Bible, including nephesh, this word comes up 1,600 times. And I just gave you the snippet of how it's translated. Now, there is not one mention in the scriptures, Old Testament, New Testament, that says that suke, soul, or nephesh, is something apart from a human. That is an entity that lives apart from a human. That is an entity that can live forever. There's nothing that's ever mentioned about that. It's always mentioned in the context that suke is a human. You are a soul. Okay, that's what we have here. Okay, yeah. So you hear me reference this thing about a soul and how it can be disembodied, whatever, something like that. We're going to look at that side now, okay? And we're going to give it a good look. Because I always hate it when you go to a place and they just present one side, and you're like, oh, that sounded good. Then you go outside and you hear something else, you're like, wait a minute, what happened? Okay, so we're going to look at both sides, and we're going to explore it together. And no, I'm just going to confess to you right now, I don't know anything. I was going to say I don't know everything. I know one or two things. So we're going to do this together, okay? We went back and we spoke. The second worldview on looking at humans is called dualism, right? Dualism is humans are made out of two separate things, but only the one thing, the soul, is what gives human their identity. And the soul can live apart. Okay, so this is what happens. We just said it's not found in the scriptures. This is what happens. Christianity, young Christianity. We're talking 2nd century Christianity. We're talking a grandparent in the church would have seen or heard of maybe someone in the New Testament. That's how close it is, okay? Christianity in the 2nd century takes a transition because they were persecuted. They were the ostracized religion. They were kind of the minority. And then all of a sudden, the government says, Christianity is the bomb. Everybody should become a Christian. And now all of a sudden, the pastors and theologians go like, whoa, how are we going to teach all of these people that have no Bible background, how are we going to teach them Bible truths? And then a couple of them get together, and I'm not hating on these guys, because these guys are super smart. You read their writings, and you can learn a lot, okay? They come together, and they say, what everybody does know who's joining right now is philosophy. They know philosophy. And in the 2nd century, the church goes deep into philosophy. And in fact, one philosopher specifically, there's a bunch that do this, but the main guy, his name is Plato. And in one of his problems of universals, in a conversation that he has, it's called the Republic, he has this conversation. Okay, here's the conversation that Plato has. It's very fascinating. Plato says that the real world, the world that we see right now, is just a shadow of the real world. That the material is not the best. The material is a copy of the thought, of the intent, of the real thing. Does that kind of make sense to you guys? And he goes a step further. Actually, the theologians go ahead and grab this, and they say, Plato makes the distinction to say that the material is bad, and the immaterial, the soul, is the good. And all the way from the 2nd century, we start having this division where we start saying anything that brings pleasure to the body, bad, 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 bad. Only things that are good are mindly things, things for the soul. This is what happens. Let me read you a quote here. This is from Dean Ing, professor of divinity. He says, Platonism is part of the vital structure of Christian theology. And then he talks about a guy called Plotinus. This is one of the main theologians in the 2nd century. Platonists, okay. They would understand better. If people would read Plotinus, they would understand better continuity between the old culture and the new religion. And they might realize the utter impossibility of excising, that means removing, Platonism from Christianity without tearing Christianity to pieces. And he says, the Galilean gospel, by the way, this guy is not a Seventh-day Adventist or anything like that. He's just a theologian. The Galilean gospel, as it proceeded from the lips of Jesus, was doubtless unaffected by Greek philosophy. But early Christianity, from its very beginning, was formed by a confluence, so this is coming together, of Jewish and Hellenic religious ideas. And then further on, this is another guy who says, Plato understood the self as divided between body and soul, with the soul more closely related to goodness and truth. This made Christianity's later soul-body division easier to understand. Okay, one more guy. This one's Augustine. I found that whatever truth I had read in the Platonist was in the writings of Paul, combined with the exaltation of thy grace. And one after the other goes off. A guy called Eusebius actually says, Plato is the only Greek who has attained the porch of Christian truth. So what happens is these guys actually study Plato, and Plato is a dualist. Plato says that humans have a soul. Plato's the first guy who says they have an immortal soul apart from the body. And in the 2nd century, these theologians get together and say, that makes sense. If we say that, it'll make sense to people coming into the church. And this is the first mention of dualism that we have in a Christian body. Even today, if you go to a Jewish synagogue who have the Old Testament, they do not believe in a soul that's apart because it's just not there. It happens in the 2nd century. But it's not as easy as it seems, okay? Because I really want to look at this together. It's not as easy as it seems. I'm going to read a couple texts to you. We're going to go through this real quick, a couple texts, and then we're going to remember our ground rules. Ground rule is let the Bible explain itself. don't bring any presuppositions to it. Don't add anything that's not found in the Bible. We go with what the Bible made the definition. Okay, so this is the first one. Oh, I had the quote up there. Okay, here we go. Okay, this is Luke chapter 12, 4-5. No man can destroy both the physical body and the soul, however God can. Wait a minute. Sorry, I didn't put the right text up there. Let me read it here. Okay, this is Matthew 10:28. Do not fear those who kill the body, but are unable to kill the soul. Rather fear him who is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. Okay, so depending on what worldview you come from, this sounds different. Do not fear those who kill the body. I thought you just said that the body is a human. And then it says, but are unable to kill the soul. Rather fear him who is able to destroy both soul and body? What's going on? Like I'm here just to confuse you, right? I feel like that's my job. Okay. The rules are, how did the Bible define those terms? What would soul be defined as? What we looked at is soul is defined as life. So if I read that again, it'd say, do not fear those who kill the body, but are unable to kill life? What? Rather, fear him who is able to destroy both life and body? And you're thinking, I thought you were going to be helpful this time. That's even more confusing. Jesus actually has this same conversation later on. This is the text that he has later on in Luke 2:4. No man can destroy both the physical body and the soul. However, God can. On another occasion, Christ stated, and I say to you, my friends, do not be afraid of those who kill the body, and after that have no more that they can do. But I will show you whom you should fear. Fear him who, after he has killed, has power to cast into hell. Okay. Okay, so what we have here is those who can kill the body, that's kill the life. And now the question that comes from this, and the second time that Jesus talks about it, is, are you dead when you've killed the body? There's another teaching in the scriptures that says that all of us will go to judgment. And so you live again. And it's all of the scripture. And this is just the first conversation that we're having. But you can kill the body, but there's only one who can actually kill you, if I just say it clearly like that, someone who can end it permanently is God. The reason is because God can always bring back to life. Did you catch that? There is only one who can kill both your body and can kill the life completely. I just want you to think about this. This always gets me excited. If you die and you believe in holism and God can bring you back to life, it means that you are remembered by God and God can recreate you from his memory. And in order, this just blows my mind, in order to actually die and never come back, God forgets. Did you hear that? Isn't that just like, blah? You are never truly dead until God forgets. And in the scriptures, this is referred to as the second death. So that text we look at, Jesus is saying, he says it twice, don't fear those who can kill you right now. You're going to be killed, but there's always one who can bring you back to life. And he says it too when Lazarus dies. He meets him. Jesus says, do you believe that he will rise again? And she said, at the last day, because they believe that there is another time when people live. So right here in this text, they're talking about the second death, which is the one that only God can do, because you are only truly gone if God forgets. That's crazy. Okay, one more text here.
Crazy good.
Okay, no, that one's boring. We're out of time. Okay, this one's good. Here we go. This is Revelation 6:9. When he opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been slain because of the word of God and the testimony they had maintained. Again, I'm here to confuse you, right? So the image you might be having is there's a throne, there's an altar, and under them there's like some kind of floaty Casper thing going, wah! If you read later on, they're actually like asking for vengeance. They're like, come on, avenge our deaths. That's what they're saying. So, we're out to lunch. No. So what's happening here? Once again, we go back to how does the Bible define this? A soul is a life. So what we have here, how this should be read is, I saw under the altar the lives, the people who have been slain because of the word of God. If I can be frank, this is how this is saying. I saw dead people talking. That's what that's saying. So there's a couple questions that come up in this text. First off, why are they under the altar? If you read about how the altar is used in the scriptures, the altar is the place where the blood of the sacrifice was always poured out. Right under the altar. Right under the altar. And there's another time in the scriptures when the blood that is poured out talks. You know that? There's a guy who kills his brother. Cain kills Abel. And God comes and says, the blood of your brother cries out to me. So right away, you're saying, okay, is there more going on here? And it turns out what happens is it's just how you read it. If you don't bring any presuppositions into it, it is dead people talking in a strategic place that they were killed to say they were sacrifices. And if you read a little further, there are quite a bit of dead people that talk in Revelation. The first one is the lamb that was slain. There is an image of a lamb that has been killed, and the lamb talks. This is what's happening here, is this is a symbolic representation of those souls, of those lives, of those people. The author is making a point that, yeah, blood doesn't talk. Yeah, dead people don't talk. But in symbolism, this represents that they were killed for the gospel. So that's another text. I think we're running out of time here. Woo! That is a big one. We'll do it real quick. 2 Corinthians 5:5-8. Now we know that if the earthly tent we live in is destroyed, we have a building from God, an eternal house in heaven, not built by human hands. Why is okay? What happened here? Oh, sorry, I put 5 up there. Meanwhile we groan, longing to be clothed with our heavenly dwelling. Verse 3, because when we are clothed, we will not be found naked. What's going on? For while we are in this tent, we groan and are burdened because we do not wish to be unclothed, but to be clothed with our heavenly dwelling, so that what is mortal may be swallowed up by life. Now it is God who has made for us this very purpose and has given us the Spirit as a deposit, guaranteeing what is to come. Verse 6, verse 5 was up there. What happened here? All right, verse 6. Therefore, we are always confident and know that as long as we are at home in the body, we are away from the Lord. We live by faith and not by sight. Verse 8. We are confident, I say, and would prefer to be away from the body and at home with the Lord. So this is one of these texts that, again, you have to look at definitions. On first glance, you could say, oh, that's saying the body is like a tent. Inside's the real thing. And Paul desires to be away from his body so that he can be with God. Okay, so this is, again, same rules. And I'm just doing this just to make this point over and over again. The scriptures say that there is nothing that lives apart from the body. A human is a body. Luckily, this one, Paul talks about it further on. 1 Corinthians 15. Listen, I tell you a mystery. We will not all sleep, but we will all be changed in a flash, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet. For the trumpet will sound, the dead will be raised imperishable, and we will be changed. For the perishable must clothe itself with the imperishable and the mortal with immortality. When the perishable has been clothed with the imperishable and the mortal with immortality, then the saying that is written will come true: death has been swallowed up in victory. So this is actually a parallel text. He explains it. The home, it's like clothes. It's either a mortal body or it's an immortal body. And the hilarious text, when you're naked, is when you're not a body, when you're dead. That's what he's saying. He's saying, I would rather not die. I would rather already be clothed and go to heaven. And this is where it says it right here. It's a parallel text. You're always a body. You're either a mortal body or, later on, you're an eternal body. That's the teaching that we have here. Okay, take a deep breath. Let it out. You did it. You did it. This is what this whole foundation's about. Okay? If you take anything away from this conversation, this is what it's about. From the beginning, your existence depends on another. From the beginning, you were created. That's the foundation truth that we have here. You were created, and your life comes from the life giver. But it doesn't stop there. Your life continues because of the life giver. Do you see that? That's the belief. And the more you get to know the life giver, the more you experience life. Here's John 15:5. I am the vine, you are the branches. If a man remains in me and I in him, he will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. From the beginning, the foundation is one of relationship with God. If you say that a soul is separate and is immortal, it actually doesn't have to depend on God for life. Did you hear that? It goes against this foundation that from the beginning, you were made to depend on God. That from the beginning, you were created with a purpose. And that the more you get to know the life giver, the more alive you will become. And this is just the first conversation that we have, because next week, we're having the conversation of what happens when you die. What happens at the end of death? Is there a hell? What is that about? That's what we're looking at next week. It's going to be awesome. But for today, God is inviting you to depend on Him, to have a relationship with Him, to meet the life giver, to know that you were created for a purpose, for a reason, that you were created for joy, that you were created for community. This is our foundation.
recognize just how much we need you, that apart from you, we don't exist. God, we ask that as we break from our time of worship here, as we move into the rest of our week, that you would just keep putting that before our minds, that we really do need you. Thank you for the gift that is, to be able to lean upon you in our lives. We pray and praise your name. Amen. We just want to thank you for worshiping with us today. You can join us for a fellowship lunch just over across the hall. We're going to spend some more time just up here in kind of an afterglow worshiping. You're welcome to join us, or you're welcome to start the fellowship lunch without us. But we're just, again, wanting to say how blessed we've been by having you worship with us today.
When the music fades, all is stripped away, and I simply come, longing just to bring something that's of worth, that'll bless your heart. I'll bring you more than a song, for a song in itself is not what you have required. You search much deeper within, through the way things appear. You're looking into my heart. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, and it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the thing I've made it. When it's all about you, it's all about you, Jesus. King of endless worth, no one could express how much you deserve. No one we can pour, all I have is yours, every single breath. I'll bring you more than a song, for a song in itself is not what you have required. You search much deeper within, through the way things appear. You're looking into my heart. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, and it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the thing I've made it. When it's all about you, it's all about you, Jesus. What a powerful name it is. Nothing can stand against. What a powerful name it is. The name of Jesus.
Thank you.